It was night, the moon was illuminating a river, and somewhere there was a temple. Someone whose hand was full of scars was observing the landscape. It was the leader of the Murim Alliance, the Emperor of the Fist, called Ju Young-hak. While he was deep in his thoughts, someone knocked on his door, informing him that they had brought tea. This caught Young-hak's attention, who came out of his trance and gave them permission to enter. A beautiful servant brought tea, informing him that she had prepared white dew tea from Zishan. This aroused Young-hak's curiosity, who was somewhat surprised. He sat down to have tea, reminding her that this was the tea from his hometown, and while the servant was serving it in the cup, she replied that she was aware it was a famous tea from Zishan. The emperor thanked her and decided to make sure to drink it well. He picked up the cup of tea, and the maid began to watch closely, and just as he was about to take his first sip, someone knocked on the door and interrupted the alliance leader's tea session. It was the military advisor Zheng. Immediately, the emperor placed the cup on the table, and with a confused expression asked what he was doing here at this hour and gave him permission to enter. Zheng, a man with long hair, entered and greeted the emperor respectfully, apologizing for interrupting him. He was a very handsome man. He had come to inform them that they had received a message from the Tang Sichuan clan, thinking it would be better to let the emperor know immediately. With a calm smile, the emperor asked him not to worry about interrupting the tea session. He had come in haste, so it must be an important matter. Zheng approached the emperor and placed a red scroll on the table, revealing that Rakshasa of the bloody hand, Tak Anyang, had died. His head had been cut off by the Tang clan, obtaining the secret manual of the poisonous art of the bloody hand. This made the emperor burst into fury, shattering the teacup into pieces. He clenched his fist and his body began to tremble with rage. He wanted to know where and how they had obtained the manual. Zheng casually revealed that, previously, Tak Anyang had been struck by the divine sovereign of myriad poisons, and his whereabouts were unknown. And after that, it was said that he had gone to Hainan Island to live in seclusion. With an enthusiastic smile, he informed the emperor that there was a much more interesting story than this. It was said that a young warrior and his poisonous creatures had killed Tak Anyang. The emperor was in shock, as he had never before heard of anyone being capable of using poisonous creatures. Zheng, who sat in front of the emperor explaining that he had heard many interesting stories, he was sure that this was a story that even the leader would be interested in. He decided to explain it in detail, but the servant began to stare at him intently, exuding a suffocating aura. In the patriarch's hall of the Tang clan of Sichuan, everyone was seated at a table, including Soriyang, Huayan, her mother, and the great patriarch. One of the elders asked if it was true that there were people who had sold information to other places besides them. The other elder was furious. He could not believe there were people tarnishing the reputation of the clan. Soriyang began to whisper. He was somewhat confused to see that they did not dare to say anything harsh to his father-in-law. With a smile, Huayan replied that it was normal. The patriarch of the clan knew that they had dared to damage the reputation of the clan. The elders of the collateral branches were also angry, and after all, they were a family. He had already requested that this matter be investigated. He planned to go to Yingchuan himself. One of the elders, somewhat curious, extended his hand, asking what poison the patriarch was going to use. The patriarch casually explained that first, they had to use soul-destroying poison, then blood-burning poison, and finally intestine-necrotizing poison. His eyes were shining with malice. When they were in such agony that their blood burned, their internal organs would melt, and when the soul was about to dissolve, he would finish them off with the 7-step soul-snatching poison. Soriyang was in shock since this method was typical of an assassin. It was a cocktail of poisons. The patriarch decided to leave immediately and asked one of his aides to summon the Poison Annihilation Unit. His aide nodded. A while later, the Poison Annihilation Unit gathered in front of the temple. They were men wearing masks and hoods. The patriarch asked his son-in-law to take care of himself, promising he would return soon. Soriyang showed respect and asked his father-in-law to be careful. The patriarch was somewhat confused, revealing that it was their enemies who should be careful. Kaelson and the Poison Annihilation Unit set out to punish the bastards. Pointing at the men, Soriyang asked if they were the Poison Annihilation Unit. It was the first time he had seen them since he had been here. Huayan affirmed yes, mentioning that they did quite hard work. With a smile, she said their job was mainly erasing people, and for this reason they were called the Poison Annihilation Unit. Our boy was in shock, questioning if this really counted as hard work. While they were distracted, someone coughed. It was the elders of the Tang clan. Soriyang and Huayan greeted them with respect. The elders asked if the boy had had a fortuitous encounter. Soriyang nodded his head. A question came to his mind. He didn't know if these people were looking for the royal jelly of golden-haired queen bees. The reality was somewhat different. The elders were somewhat nervous as they had come to ask him for a favor. Soriyang, somewhat curious, asked what they wanted. He asked if by any chance the favor was about the royal bees, the elders became even more nervous and refused since there was no reason why they would covet such a thing. Soryang became curious, and the elders began to feel ashamed. One of them approached our boy and asked him to bring his ear closer. Whispering, the elder asked if Soryang remembered the medicine of the ground beetle. Our boy had been the one who created it and had the authority. Soryang began to smile, then took out the medicine from the ground beetle and started juggling. He was having a hard time adapting to the clan in many ways, but if they, the elders, helped him in various ways, there would be nothing he couldn't give them. The elders began to laugh, promising to help their son-in-law from now on. Huayan was somewhat disappointed. The great patriarch came out of the temple and saw the elders laughing heartily. Just as our boy was about to hand over the medicine from the ground beetle, the great patriarch asked what they were all talking about so cheerfully. They panicked and then started dancing to cover it up, explaining that it was just a friendly gathering. The plan worked since the great patriarch believed them, thinking they had finally realized Soryang's true value. Huayan was somewhat disappointed and furious. One of the men opened the door and reported that there was a big problem. Everyone became curious, and the great patriarch asked what the problem was. Pai revealed that Lord Sichuan was on the verge of death. Upon hearing this, everyone was in shock and panic. Soryang questioned if he had been using the medicine correctly, and Pai confirmed it. After seeing the effect of the medicine, Sichuan took a new concubine and took more than double the amount Soryang had suggested. Our boy started sweating at the thought of the consequences. The great patriarch was somewhat disappointed and decided to go take a look. Soryang was the only man left in the house, so he entrusted him with the mission of protecting the women. Our boy said goodbye to him and assumed responsibility. The great patriarch left, and Soryang was calm, thinking that nothing could happen while they were away. Several hours later, night fell. Soryang and Huayan were sitting on a bench. She asked how he was finding the dual origin art of the 10 poisons that he had been learning. He replied that it was not as difficult to understand now as it had been at the beginning. If the technique of the return of the 5 poisons felt like a single large orb moving inside the body, then the dual origin art of the 10 poisons was more like a 2-cylinder engine. Huayan realized that now our boy must have developed some tolerance to common poisons, revealing that furthermore, he could release his internal energy directly or imbue it into objects. Soryang was speechless. He felt intrigued, and the desire to try his new technique consumed him. They prepared a straw dummy. Soryang unsheathed a dagger and closed his eyes to concentrate. A powerful green energy began to emerge from his body. The first step was to move the internal energy from left to right, and then rotate both orbs in the same direction. Once the Kai energy circulated through his body, he opened his eyes and forcefully threw the dagger at the straw dummy. The dagger moved like lightning, piercing through the straw dummy without much effort. Soryang was happy, and his fiancée praised him for being able to imbue his Kai into the dagger. The knife, emitting energy, stuck in the wall, right in front of 2 masked men. At first, they thought they had been caught and decided to eliminate them, but then upon seeing the straw dummy, they realized it had been a coincidence. One of them was holding a book. It was the Blood Hand Poison Art Secret Manual. Although it was a copy, their work was already done, so they decided to leave here as soon as possible and return before something troublesome happened. They thought that the guards of the Tang clan were idiots for having neglected the security of the training hall, and thanks to their negligence, escaping was going to be a piece of cake. But then, something happened, and a pink aroma began to spread through the air, making the men tense up. It was a sweet aroma, and the men didn't know where it came from. Right above them was the queen bee, who started staring at them intently, knowing that these guys were intruders.
So, friends, this chapter comes to an end. What will happen next? We'll uncover it in the next chapter. Don't forget to rate this chapter out of 10 in the comments. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.